Are you smart? Maybe you think you are smart. When it comes to being smart, a person can be academically, practically, socially, or intuitively smart. People can also learn to be smart in whatever field of work or life they are in if they study and work hard enough. Being smart can also mean becoming financially successful and making a lot of money from investments and planning. But regardless of how much or little money you have, being smart can mean many things in many ways. Do you think that you are smart in some ways? Just because some people think they are smart in different ways does not mean they can see clearly or at all. I know many so-called smart people who just cannot see obvious things that are right in front of them. In other words, sometimes smart people are blind. How many smart people throughout human history have made very big mistakes? Thousands and even millions of smart people have made very big, avoidable mistakes in their lives. This means they weren't as smart as they thought they were. Look at all the wars lost by various countries whose leaders were considered smart. How about all the buildings and structures designed and built by supposedly smart people that have fallen down unexpectedly and people were killed? Were those people really smart at the time? Then there are the smart doctors or lawyers who failed their patients or clients and the patients died, or the innocent people were convicted. Maybe your car, truck engine, or transmission is falling apart and not working right, and you have taken good care of it. The so-called smart people who built your vehicle caused those things to happen. One of the most catastrophic accidents that has occurred in relatively recent times was the destruction of the US Space Shuttle Challenger and all 7 astronauts and passengers on board in 1986. Just 73 seconds after, it was launched from the Cape Canaveral in Florida. Smart people who designed and built that spaceship, or who gave the launch orders, really did not care about the safety of the innocent people inside that spacecraft. It was all about getting it up into space and not about the people. Where were the smart people then? Look at the people in the photo above who were all killed instantly in that catastrophic explosion in the air. Innocent people trusting their spaceship and the people who were in charge of this mission and launch. The smart people in charge did not care about them, and ultimately, many smart people don't care about you, and they don't care about your eternity. The desires of the people in charge of the Challenger mission gave way to their personal pride and wanting the mission to go forward without further delays, even though they had very good reasons to stop the launch. Ultimately, the people in charge were not smart. It was all about the money and also about pressure from government entities and other people involved who oversaw this mission. The bottom line is that many smart people do not really care about you, just like smart people who did not care about the Challenger crew. Smart people in many cases care most about their smartness, along with money and their position and being able to show how smart they think they are. That is what caused the 7 people to die inside that space shuttle when it exploded in the air. They were all killed needlessly, and the mission could have been stopped had they really wanted to. It's unfortunate that in many cases, smart people can talk with an extreme amount of confidence and use big words to give you the impression they cannot be wrong about the subject they are discussing. But they definitely can be wrong even though they will not admit it. But one of the biggest abuses from so-called smart people is that many of these people cannot stand to be wrong about anything. Being wrong about an important subject for them is a direct reflection on the person themselves and their ego and pride. It is human pride which can and will weigh us down and stop us from admitting that we are wrong. Being wrong and admitting we are wrong about something, even little things, can be very difficult for a lot of people to do. Just saying the words, "I was wrong," can almost be impossible for many people, even if you know you're wrong. One of the most difficult subjects ever thought about or discussed by smart people is, how did everything get here? In other words, how did the universe get here? How did time get here? How did existence get here? When did it start? Who or what started it? And how did humans and all other life on this planet come to exist? When it comes to answering those questions, there is one thing for sure. Nothing can be absolutely proven when it comes to how all of this started and how existence came into being. It's all about the evidence that we can find to support our conclusions. Scientists, as an example, can and do make suppositions and come to conclusions based on what they consider to be evidence to support their claims. But many times they can be wrong. Astrophysicists do the same thing as do medical researchers, biologists, computer programmers, university professors, engineers, architects, software developers, and other experts. They think they are smart, but in many ways they are not, and they make mistakes. But the ultimate question that has been at the heart of all mankind since the beginning of man has been, is there a God or is there not a God? Can this God, which many people believe in, be specifically defined? Can we know him? And can we find and see any important, convincing evidence for the existence of this God? However, even beyond those questions, many smart people just do not believe in the existence of God. Or at the very least, they are extremely skeptical if there is enough compelling evidence for the existence of God. Regardless of all of that, do smart people actually want there to be a God? And will they admit there is ever enough evidence for the existence and direct intervention of a supreme being in our universe and in our lives? My answer to that question is no. Many smart people do not want there to be an all-powerful God. When a so-called smart person is convinced they are right and cannot be wrong, even though they are wrong, then unfortunately almost nothing will change their mind. One of the primary ways that many people believe a powerful God exists is the evidence presented by our human bodies and how our bodies are constructed and operate. Could the human body have first come into existence all by itself from an accidental and coincidental combination of elements, parts, and organization of those parts originating in a pool of water so that we can exist and operate as we do? This would be commonly known as evolution. The believers of evolution have to admit that evolution does not have a brain and does not think. There is no control center creating things such as human beings, animals, and other life forms on this planet. Evolution says that all life would have to come about naturally on its own without intervention from a thinking, creative entity or God. But how could humans who would need to see with their eyes, smell with their noses, hear with their ears, taste with their tongues, and feel with their fingers have survived if life made itself just using trial and error method over a long period of time? The human race would have died off long ago if we were not fully and perfectly formed from the beginning to operate as we do in the environment that exists. As humans, we need to function properly from the beginning to exist and thrive so that we can live. In other words, we would have had to be all put together all at one time, and not little by little until time, energy, and materials got it right all by themselves. What if we could not hear or see properly when first put together? What if we could not smell or feel correctly? How would we survive the elements around us without our senses completely intact? Were we just built perfectly and then became alive when the first man came to be? Think about that. What if we could not breathe fully and correctly, digest food properly, have a working brain to think correctly for making good decisions, and all things that human bodies must do to live? There are some so-called smart people who believe that humans came from a common ancestor of monkeys, and everything formed by accident and chance. But when exactly did humans first get bodies that were human and worked properly so they could survive and prosper as humans? In the beginning, were monkey humans just laying around in bodies that were not functioning? And then through trial and error and small improved changes, humans started to exist and work correctly? Then humans got up and everything went forward from there, and here we are today? That concept is just fantasy. This theory alone proves that so-called smart people are completely blind and they refuse to see. We did not happen and come into existence by ourselves by chance. Impossible. How did a non-thinking, non-planning ethereal force going through time just miraculously come up with an ape body and all its working parts, let alone a human body as we know it today? No so-called smart evolutionist can tell you that for sure. They do not know and they are guessing. Some definitions of the origins of the most primitive brains go like this. The most primitive brains are little more than clusters of cells bunched together at the front of an organism. However, these cells process information received from sensory organs located at the head. So who or what came up with and correctly organized the process for the cells to operate and grow into what we are today? A process needs to be organized or it does not work. Do you know how complex a single human cell is? It is extremely complex, and yet people would describe primitive brains and minimize them as just clusters of cells like grains of sand. Really, the human brain is currently said to have 170 billion brain cells. How many cells in a cluster? 10, 100, 1,000, 1 million or more? Admitting to complexity in design would suggest a creator, and evolutionists would rarely admit to that conclusion. To them, God does not make sense under almost any circumstances. The so-called experts were not there in the beginning. They didn't see it happening, and everything they surmise about the so-called existence of evolution in human beings is a guess. This guess is based on fragmented historical, biological, or skewed archaeological information that does not really add up. It would be like believing that AI humanoid robots are able to exist and operate in the way they do all by themselves, without being made by someone. It would be foolish to suggest that AI creatures made themselves, or that some ethereal force which does not think made them. It is the same with the human body. We know that humans are the ones who first made the AI technology. No one is blind enough to suggest otherwise. Once a person understands the complexity and organization of the parts, including cells, nerves, and neurons in the human body, then it should be clear we are not an accident of time, energy, and material forming itself into what we are today. Impossible is what the science should be saying when it comes to humans evolving from nothing, or from apes, or from slime, or from what? That's when smart people become blind. When they don't see it, the evidence is right in front of them, staring at them in the face, but yet they won't or cannot see it. They don't want there to be a God, a creator, and they don't want it to be true. Many people who I personally know, including family members, are smarter than me from a secular human point of view. They have enviable traits and qualities that I do not have, but those things don't necessarily keep them from being blind to certain more important truths. So then those smart people who think of themselves as experts try to fit a square peg in a round hole. It really won't fit, but they don't care. They try hard to encourage us to believe that mortal human beings miraculously just got here somehow by accident or chance. And we operate in the incredibly complex ways that we do, all by non-directed trial and error over time. Imagine the human heart, or a heart of any animal, having made itself. A human heart that can beat and operate for up to approximately 100 years every second of every day without stopping. The perfect complexity of the human heart having come into being on its own. Could time and matter create life with exactly what we need to exist and have those human parts organized and built in exactly the ways they are? All by themselves with no outside creative force, such as the way smart humans can create AI creatures? In other words, there cannot be an all-powerful God because God does not fit into their mold. They want to create God into their image so that God fits into their view of the way things should be. If God cannot be part of their way, then there cannot be a powerful, universal God who exists. That would be like saying the creature creates the God, and the God does not create the creature. Many of these smart people also believe there could be evolutionary creatures on other planets, but they are just guessing because they think the sheer number of planets and galaxies in our universe offer a good excuse for other life forms to exist. But big numbers do not need to equate to probable existence. Smart people become mentally blind when they are presented with overwhelming evidence on a subject they don't like. And they just close their eyes to that evidence because they don't want to be wrong and to give in to the truth. They don't want to give in to the truth that human beings as we know them are not evolved from space, time, and matter. Human beings cannot be accidents of time, space, and matter. They cannot be coincidences. They cannot be what they are without an intelligent designer. But who or what is that intelligent designer? And can we as humans know who this designer is and what he is all about? That's the million-dollar question. Would you like to know the answer to that question? You should want to know because one day when you die, your eternal outcome will completely depend on it. And you'd better be right. Do you care about your eternity and where you will be forever? Do you want more than a dark pit of eternal existence when you die with no more colors and no more light ever again? Don't be a smart person who is also mentally and spiritually blind. You can have eternal life with more colors, more light, and more beauty, forever. Please ask me if you want to know more. When you take your last breath, make sure you are ready. Your eternity depends upon it.